Hello YouTube, and welcome to my channel about all things information technology. Today is just going to be a quick video about owning your domain name. A lot of companies will hire web developers to build them a website. The web developers will offer services like registering the domain name and hosting it, charge a monthly or yearly fee, and there's nothing wrong with that. And this video is not intended to bash web developers. It's just to make my followers aware of some of the issues that can come up when they don't own their actual domain name. So if you want to find out more, stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's go over some terms before we discuss why you should actually own your own domain name. So what is a domain name? It's a textual address of where your internet users can access your website. Here we have the example of google.com. The domain registrar is where you're actually going to go to sign up to own that domain. So you'll go to a registrar's website like GoDaddy, HostPapa, NamesPro, Register.ca. There's lots of them out there. You'll type into a field to see if a certain name is available. When the website tells you it's available, you'll say buy now, you sign up with a username and password, and away you go. Registrars can also offer services like hosting your website for you. They can host email, offer lots of different services. Within that account, you can manage what are called DNS records, and the DNS records are going to point to where the data is on the internet. In the example I have here, google.com, if you actually ping it, replies to that IP address 172.217.1.14, which is one of Google's web servers. I'm sure they have many. And mail.google.com points to a different server. Similar address, but it's definitely a different server because the IP ends in .165. If Google wanted to start using Office 365, they're not happy with their Gmail, they're done, they're going to give their mail services to Office 365, they would go into their DNS records and change mail.google.com to point to the IP address of Office 365, and then mail flow would start going there. That would never happen, but you know, it does happen with businesses when they change mail providers, so something similar would happen. How do web developers come into play with the domain name? Well, most will offer registering and hosting services, meaning that they'll register and renew the domain name and manage the hosting on their servers. Now, I don't mean they have servers inside their building. They probably have a hosting company like Google and host the domain there, which is fine. It's not expensive, and they will provide those services for their clients. If the developer registers the domain name, they technically own it. That just means they have access to it. If something happened with the domain, you could go to that registrar and say, hey, listen, we can't get a hold of this guy anymore or girl, and we need access to our domain. The registrar has processes in place for you to get your domain. Usually you have to fill out a form, or they have to contact the developer. If they don't hear back in 24 or 48 hours, you fill out the form, send it to them, and they'll give you the domain. So it's a common practice that happens often enough. But if you need to get access to that domain, like say it wasn't registered, it expired, the domain name's not accessible, your email's not working, your website's down, that could be a problem if you don't have access to the domain yourself. If you did, well, and you forgot to pay, you just take your credit card, go online, pay, it's back in an hour. Many times the domain names will be on the shared account of the web developer, so it's just not easy for them to give you access to the web, to make DNS changes yourself, because they'll have your domain name on the same account with all their other clients. So if you ever wanted to leave them, there's always that awkward, yeah, I'll transfer the domain, here's the code, yada yada, rather than you just having an account yourself. I know with my clients, their domain names are hosted on their own account, so if they ever left me, I would just give them their credentials and away they go. Most developers are good at what they do. I'm not a web developer. I can't really build websites, but they lack the knowledge of DNS and why they're important to other services. I've had so many issues, which is why I'm making this video, with smaller web developers that didn't realize the importance of the DNS records and how they could actually play with other services like the company's email, for example. One time I had a web developer Actually, we had access to the domain. It was on their own account. This wasn't even a shared account with a web developer. This was the client had their own account, only them on there. But one of the employees wanted to get the website developed and asked me for the credentials. I went to upper management. They said, yeah, give it to him. He took the credentials, gave them to the web developer. The web developer then transferred the domain name over to there without us even knowing what they were doing. And all they did was add the web DNS record, which was pointing to the new server, and the website was up. But then all of a sudden, the email was down, and there was close to 100 people working for that company. And to get everything back working, the email was down all day. You know what I mean? And when I talked to the web developer, they're just like, "Oh, well, I didn't know." Well, that's this is why I'm making the video. So my recommendation when hiring a web developer is set the expectation that you'll give them access to the hosting services yourself. So if you're just signing up for a new domain, sign up for the domain, register for many years, buy the hosting, see if you could sign up for the hosting for a few years, and then you ask the developer, well, what type of services do you need to host it on here? And you purchase them accordingly and then give them access. Every time that I've taken that approach with developers, they didn't mind. It didn't matter to them. They're getting paid to build a website. It's only awkward when they already have the domain name and already doing the hosting, and then you want to just take control yourself. Then they're thinking, oh, well, am I doing something wrong? You know what I mean? That's when things get awkward. So if you always start off from the beginning and set the expectations that the company is going to own the domain name and we'll give you access, that's always been better for everybody, and I've never had any troubles. If IT needs to make a quick change, the developer might not be available right away. I've had pretty good luck recently. I had to get a change made from a developer in town that I know, and he made the change real quick. I emailed him at night. Next morning it was done. By the time I even read his email, it was already propagated on the internet. But there's times when you want to add one record, then add another, and then they don't know what they're doing. Like say with the Office 365 records, there's a lot of them, and it gets a little complicated. So it's kind of hit and miss. And I kind of touched on this one already. If the developer closes shop, the domain renewal will fail, and domain name shuts down, DNS records stop, website goes down, email starts failing and bouncing back to people. And what do you do after that to get everything back working? What should you do? Like I mentioned, register the domain name yourself or take ownership of it. Try to be as nice as possible. If you want to continue using that web developer, you want to build a good relationship with them and just say, you know what, we feel that it's important to take ownership of the domain and have access to it ourselves in case anything happens. You can, I didn't mention this in the first slides, but you can host the domain at one place and have the registrar somewhere else and just point the records to wherever. But I always recommend doing it all at the same place because you pay one company, everything's there, and it's easier to manage that way. Keep up with your renewals and pay multiple years in advance just so you don't have to accidentally forget every year. Any changes to DNS should go through IT or someone who understands the DNS. IT is better equipped to make changes to the DNS, and they're usually the ones that want to make changes for email services. Web developers usually only need to have one record, like www and maybe the main host record pointed to a web service. Other than that, it's usually IT that needs more complex DNS records set. If you lose the domain, you can get it back, but there's a process. Like I mentioned, you have to fill out a form. They have to contact the owner. You can get it back. It's not the end of the world, but you just don't want to be getting it back while your services are down. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. So if you like the video, hit the thumbs up below. And if you want to see more, please hit subscribe. Thank you for watching.